Welcome to the Life Beyond Bounds podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Herdwalker. On this podcast, I give advice and insights that help you go beyond your comfort zone to embrace life as your greatest adventure, beyond geographical boundaries to explore the world without limits, beyond the confines of the norm to live life on your terms, and even beyond your current limits to unlock a life that is bold, adventurous, and genuinely fulfilling. Together, let's create your life beyond bounds. Welcome back to the Life Beyond Bounds podcast, where I help high achievers design a life of freedom, adventure, and genuine fulfillment. If you are fulfilled, happy, and loving life exactly as it is, wonderful. If you don't want anything else, wonderful. But then you probably wouldn't be drawn to listening to this podcast. So it's likely there's something that you want that is nagging at you, or you're feeling less fulfilled than you used to, feeling off or stuck, you're wishing or hoping, dreaming of something different, but you're not taking the action to create it. Today, we're tackling the biggest barriers standing between you and the life that you know you're meant for. The reasons why you're not taking action, even though you're capable, committed, and have the ability to make the leap. Change can be scary. No matter how much success you've created in life, no matter how capable you are, the thought of shaking things up can feel overwhelming, daunting, and sometimes downright terrifying. Actually, it may feel scarier because of the success that you created. But why is that? Why do so many smart, driven people at some point in their lives feel stuck, resisting the very changes that they know deep down that they want to make? There are 4 primary reasons: clarity, fear, mindset or beliefs, and then the practical reasons, such as not having enough time and not having the information or knowledge that you need. However, it's a lot more complex, nuanced, and individual than that. Let's unpack each of those, starting with clarity, then fear, then the deeper mindset blocks, and then finally the practical hurdles. But before I dive deeper into those reasons, I want to clarify that this episode is for those of you who have already made that internal non-negotiable decision that I talked about in one of my episodes, where that this is the path that you know you want to take. And for those of you who have the financial resources or freedom and flexibility to make the pivot that you're dreaming about. You could travel full-time, relocate to another country, or launch that passion project, whatever it is you're feeling pulled toward, yet you're still stuck in place. If the biggest reason you're not taking action to create the adventurous, fulfilling life you want most is not having the freedom, flexibility, or finances, you're also not alone. That's a big hurdle, and it's where most people get stuck and give up. Creating the ability to unlock the life you want most is the topic of my next episode, so be sure not to miss that. But that's different than resisting change. So for today, I want to focus on the most common reasons I see smart, successful, capable people like you who have the ability to live the life that they're envisioning resist change. All right, first is lack of clarity. If you're not crystal clear on exactly what you want next, it's impossible to take focused action. That type of clarity becomes harder to have when you have a spouse to consider, and even harder if you also have kids to consider. Life is no longer just about you. And if you resonate with that, it's likely that what you're feeling is lack of clarity due to having competing values. You might be clear on what you want. Maybe your spouse is also on board. But is it what's best for your kids? The more people we have to consider, the murkier the water gets when it comes to the clarity needed to make a big change. When I said that resistance to change is highly nuanced, complex, and individual, this is just one example of how. Several years ago, my husband and I, we were living a very good traditional lifestyle in Ohio. We had a beautiful home, a thriving business, great friends. We had family close by to support us, just a short drive away. By all accounts, it was the life we were supposed to want and did want in a way. But inside, we were restless. One night, we were sitting out on our patio at the tall table that he built, looking back into our kitchen, which the two of us personally renovated, and then out to our backyard at the new fire pit area that we had just put in. And I looked around and I said, it's beautiful, but are we supposed to sit here and look at it forever? And he felt that too. That moment of honesty led us to pivot our life. We knew we could have that experience of owning a home in one location anytime in our life, but our window to travel the world with our kids was limited. That led us to creating a business online to give ourselves the freedom and flexibility we wanted to travel full time with our kids. So we definitely valued having a beautiful home in a great community, but not more than we valued adventure, connection, making memories with our kids, and enriching their education through showing them the world. That was something that we could only have for a very short time in comparison. When you have competing values, you have to prioritize thinking about the stage of life you're in now and how you want to maximize that stage, which is something that I can help you do inside of my course, Escape the Status Quo. All right, so the second biggest reason most people resist change is fear. Normally, when it comes to creating an adventurous, fulfilling life, the most common fears that I see are fear of failure, fear of judgment, which could also be fear of success. You hesitate because you're worried what others will think or say, and that it will change some of your relationships with those who don't understand this dream of yours or who would be envious of you living your best life. And then there's fear of regret. Ironically, you may be afraid of missing out on your current comforts or opportunities if you choose a new path. So you stay put to avoid those future what ifs. Or you're afraid that you're making the wrong decision. And then there's fear of the unknown, which is keeping your ego clinging to your comfort zone. You worry about messing it all up, especially when your life is already very good. These are all really common. So if you're feeling any of these, then you're not alone. Being fearless is not the goal. The goal is learning how to move through fear so it doesn't keep you stuck, or deciding when it's an indication that a certain path isn't meant for you. Feeling fear is normal. Using it as an excuse to resist change is a decision. Now that we've covered lack of clarity and fear, there's so much more I can keep going into on both of those. But let's talk about all the ways that our mindset or beliefs make us resist change. And I don't even think these are all the ways, but here's some of the ways. As humans, we form beliefs and perspectives throughout our life, some of which help us thrive, but most are just helping us survive. When we're feeling pulled towards something new, we have to examine the mindset and beliefs that are no longer serving us and shift those. This is a very broad category. It includes limiting beliefs that have formed from years of experience and then taking a few knocks along the way. Past setbacks leave stories in our mind. We're conditioned to only remember the negatives and not all the wins, which eventually makes us more resistant to change. But this can also include identity attachment, particularly the external validation that comes from your title, your status, or the career you've built. Maybe you've attached so much of your worth to your professional identity that the thought of changing paths feels like you'd lose a big part of who you are. I've heard clients say things like, people respect me because of my success. So what happens if I step away? I've worked so hard to build this career, I don't know how to let it go, even though it's no longer fulfilling and is causing them a lot of stress. It's pretty common. It's a pretty common thing to tie your identity to your professional achievements. Considering a change can threaten that sense of self-worth. But here's the thing, your true value, your genuine worth, has nothing to do with your job title, your income, or what others think of your status. You are inherently worthy, no matter what. It doesn't matter what you decide to do for a living. So we live in a society that attaches a lot of worth to that identity, and that's something that you have to work through and break down. Still related to mindset and beliefs, you may have also reached your upper limit, which requires a mindset or belief shift. Gay Hendricks talks about this in his book, The Big Leap. We all have limits on how good we think life can be, how much love we can receive, how much money we can make, how much freedom or fulfillment we can really have. If you're resisting change, it's possible you need to raise your upper limit in order to allow yourself to take the action to create what you really want. Or maybe you're perceiving the risk of turning your aspirations into reality to be greater than the reward. It's easy for our minds to tally what we might lose by making a change, but much harder for it to weigh that against all that you stand to gain, such as increased fulfillment, deeper connections, greater memories, or a life that excites you daily. To try to understand the rewards, you can talk to others who are already doing the thing that you want to do. But truthfully, in my experience, you have to go and experience it for yourself. You have to have the courage to leap and see what all those gains might be. Or maybe one of the other things with mindset and beliefs is that you're living to external expectations or shoulds, which includes weighing up responsibility versus whimsy. You think you should be more practical at this stage of your life. You feel responsible for kids, parents, bills, and believe that change is irresponsible. But you can pay your bills and pursue what lights you up. In fact, following your dreams often opens doors to even more abundance. And last, under the category of how our minds resist change, at least last for today, is clinging to safety. Is the safety you're clinging to real? Or is that a false belief that you formed because the familiar feels like safety to our ego? Normally, it's a false security mindset. Your focus is on the perceived safety that comes from a steady paycheck, but if you get real and vulnerable with yourself, you know that one layoff can change everything in a moment's notice. I'm sure we all know somebody who went to work thinking it was a normal day and were walked to the door with their things a few hours later. Maybe that's happened to you. When your life is in somebody else's hands and decisions are being made at a table that you're not sitting at, that is perceived safety, not real safety. Even if you have your own physical business, it's at the mercy of the market and the economy. So safety is something that we conjure up and we believe in because it feels very unsettling to not have it. And I completely get that. But you have to decide how much stock you're putting in a net that isn't really there. Now that we've looked at why your head might be holding you back, let's explore the practical reasons that you might be resisting change as well, such as not having enough time, falling into the success trap, and not having the information or knowledge that you need. So let's start with time. This is one that I hear often, and I want you to know that I understand this feeling, especially as a parent. However, super unpopular opinion coming in hot, this is an excuse. There are ways to make time for what matters most to us by delegating, deleting, and automating things that are taking up your time now, getting intentional with how we spend the time that we do have, and then breaking down the action that will take us from where we are to where we want to be into micro actions that can fit into our day. Being busy, I'm sure we're all guilty of this. In a lot of cases, it's a sign that you need to feel important, or it's a sign of overwhelm. And both are very different than the actual amount of hours that we have in a day, which is the same for everyone. I know there are some of you right now who are rolling your eyes because you truly believe that you do not have the time. And all I would suggest is that you conduct a time audit for a couple of weeks and see where you could delete, delegate, or automate to give yourself an hour a day. All right, next is the success trap. This is when your lifestyle has crept up with your salary and you now feel trapped. You have you have to have a certain amount of money coming in to afford the life that you've built, and that is making you resistant to taking any risks or action to create what you really want. It's easy to do, and you're certainly not alone. The solution to this comes back to evaluating what you really value and want most for this stage of your life. What do you need to adjust to free yourself from that trap? Okay, last but not least, here's a big reason I see smart, successful, capable people resisting change. They have too many unknown unknowns. You don't know what you don't know, and that is making you resist change. You don't have enough information or knowledge needed to make a big lifestyle change or take the leap into something new. When you have too many unknown unknowns, it makes the dream feel unachievable or scary, and we're not designed to take action if something feels unachievable or scary, especially the further down the path of life and career success that we are, with more responsibilities than we had in our 20s and more life experience under our belt. What you have to do is get closer to understanding the how so that the unknown becomes more known. How do you move abroad? How do you travel full-time? How do you start a business online? How do you world school your kids and still work? Whatever it is you're dreaming about, you still have unanswered questions, and that is making you resist change. There are a lot of ways that you can make the unknown known, like researching and making connections with people who are in the arena that you want to be in to ask questions. But if you're ready to fast track your pivot from the life that you have to the adventurous, fulfilling lifestyle that you're envisioning, the fastest way to shortcut the gap is by working directly with somebody who's already made the leap and is in the arena that you want to be in. In my 6-month one-on-one coaching program, you tap into my knowledge of how all of this is done, my resources, and my network to help you with the what and the how, as well as me helping you overcome those fears or shift beliefs that are no longer serving you and keep you moving forward. You'll get personalized clarity on your next steps, keeping you on track and accountable, as well as help prioritizing competing values as they arise and overcoming any internal obstacles or external roadblocks that arise so that you're spending your energy building momentum instead of reinventing the wheel, trying to do it all yourself or getting derailed. That's how you close the gap between dreaming of a life beyond bounds and actually living it faster, smarter, and with less stress. There are many other reasons that you might be resisting change, but hopefully this gives you an idea, begins to examine those things underneath that might be holding you back. Self-awareness is crucial to unlocking the life you're envisioning, but awareness without action is another form of stagnation. The next step is to overcome what is holding you back. It's one thing to know that fear is holding you back. It's another to be able to understand where that fear is coming from, if it's rational or irrational, and how to move forward anyway, or understanding when fear is actually a stop sign and is redirecting you to something even more aligned. Maybe you've had setbacks or challenges along the way that chipped away at your self-belief, making you wonder if you really have what it takes to make another big pivot or chase a new dream. Despite the success that you built, your confidence in your ability to change course or do something totally new starts to waver at some point. After all, change involves risks, and you now have more to lose. And I hear this all the time from my friends and my clients. They say things like, Nikki, I'd love to do what you're doing, but I'm too far down this path now. I'd love to start something new, but it feels irresponsible. What about my kids, my mortgage, etc.? Or they say, like, I'm just scared. What if it doesn't work out? I've worked so hard to get to where I am, building a very good life. Maybe you said something similar. And you know what? Those fears and feelings are completely valid. And I want to be clear here that I'm not going to pretend that making a big change is easy at this stage of your life. But I will say that nothing truly meaningful ever comes easily. Your fears and hesitations are valid. But remember, you're not new to change. Think back over your life. How many times have you adapted, pivoted, and succeeded? Probably more than you realize. The difference now is simply that you've become more resistant, more cautious, and many of your reasons, like I've already said, and I'll say it again, they're entirely valid. But you still have a decision to make. You can either throw your hands up and say, well, this is just the way life is, or you can lean in. Remember that you have the power and the capability to adjust your sails whenever you choose. Acknowledge the challenges without letting them hold you back permanently, and begin to overcome those things. Ask yourself this: what's the real cost of resisting change? What are you sacrificing? Is it your own happiness or fulfillment, your mental or emotional health, the quality of your relationships? What about your kids seeing you stressed, unhappy, or complaining and choosing to not make any changes? Most of you listening, I would guess, are probably in your 30s, 40s, or 50s. You could still have half of your life ahead of you. That means you potentially have decades left to reap the rewards of leaning into the pull of your soul now, following your dreams, going for it, living fully with intention, and feeling genuinely fulfilled. And then looking at it the other way, it's a long time to drift, settle, feel unfulfilled, and look back and wish that you'd lived your life more boldly. We just watched the movie Naiad the other night about Diana Naiad, who attempted to swim the 110 miles from Cuba to Florida 5 times, and not intending to ruin this for anybody who is going to watch it tonight, but she finally succeeds at age 64. And there's a quote in the movie by Mary Oliver: "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And so that's the question that I'm going to leave you with today. When you feel the pull towards something more meaningful, adventurous, or fulfilling, but you're resisting change, remember that we only get one shot at this. Do you want to say you played it safe, resisting change, even though you know you were capable of doing what you dreamed about? Or do you want to be able to say you played your hand and that you have no regrets? I think it's a lot more exciting to lean in and to actively create your life than to always wonder what if. Change isn't easy, and I'm not here to gaslight you or to downplay the reasons that you're resisting change by saying, just go for it. But you also don't have to let any of the things I listed here hold you back. That is a decision that you're making. Now, if your biggest block is that you don't have that ability, the freedom, the flexibility, or the finances to unlock the life that you're envisioning, then like I mentioned earlier, that's a different conversation, because you would likely jump at the chance to change, but feel that it's not possible in your current situation. I'm going to talk about what it takes to create freedom or location independence in the next episode, and why it's likely that you're approaching it all wrong. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss it, and then come join me behind the scenes in our Life Beyond Bounds community on Facebook. Let me know in the group which of these reasons for resisting change you identified with the most. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Life is our greatest adventure, and it's an honor to be part of your journey.